And it is none other than the injury report for the Clemson Tigers heading into this bye week, the second bye week of the season. In all seriousness, I don't think Clemson could look much better heading into the bye week with the current injury situations and where we're at right now. I don't think as a Clemson fan, you could be more thankful, appreciative, excited, and just grateful for where we are at an injury standpoint right now. Really only two big names pop out to you on that injury report right now, Tyler Brown and Brian Wesco. Obviously, that's the same position group, and in years past, that probably would have crippled the Clemson offense. However, this season got multiple guys stepping up all over the place and being pass catchers and being big-time players for the offense and Cade Klubnik and all that kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts on these two guys? I know Tyler Brown had is he the one that had the tightrope surgery?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure I get it right. So Tyler Brown had the infamous tightrope surgery, I think made famous first by one Tua Tagovailoa, former Alabama quarterback. Obviously, we know he was struggling with that high ankle sprain. Dabo talked about in previous interviews where he kind of hit that plateau, and they decided to just kind of shut him down and get that tightrope surgery. Dabo said it's kind of a case-by-case basis. It's really dependent on the player and their timeline coming back, but it looks like there is some possibility that we get him back out of the bye week. Certainly before the end of the season, I think Tyler Brown will be back in action and looking a lot closer to himself. And then obviously Brian Wesco struggling with an ankle injury as well. Obviously not as severe as Tyler Brown's. Sounds like he'll definitely be back out of the bye. What are your thoughts on these two guys? What, if any, impact is it going to have going forward for the Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you already mentioned that these are, two of your, more prominent wide receivers, and especially, Bryant Wesco this season has certainly been just, one of the bright spots and one of the stories of the Clemson offense resurgence. So, when it comes to him, it's a very big deal to get him, potentially get him back next week. Obviously, Louisville is going to be one of the better teams you've played. Might be the second best team you've played, you could argue. So getting him back and just, adding another explosive element to the offense would be huge. When it comes to Tyler Brown, obviously tightrope surgery, you mentioned it. It is a case-by-case thing. Like some guys bounce back and recover and are good really fast. And then some, maybe it takes a few more weeks. And so we'll kind of see how it goes. But they have not ruled the possibility of him coming back next week. So if you get him back, I mean, that's just another element. And as long as you have your other guys healthy, I mean, it's this Clemson wide receiver room is pretty dangerous. And already it is. But you add those two back into the fold. It does really change the calculus, and it'll make for a lot of fun in terms of explosive, passing offense. So, really just in general, this injury situation is about as good as you could ask for. I mean, yeah, you've got guys have nicks and bruises week to week, but there's nothing long term. I know Jake Brenningstool went out this past week. He seems to be okay.
Yeah.
Phil Maffa obviously has been, bumped and bruised a little bit the past couple of weeks, but he's still going strong. So, I think that's a really big deal. Other than that, you got Stephylon Green back last week. Well, Vic Burley is still they're still trying to kind of work him back in. But hopefully you get to see him next week because I really want to see some more of him. Yes, but yeah, man, as far as the injuries go, especially compared to previous seasons, you're in a pretty good shape. Knock on wood, because surprises can always happen. Has been known to happen around here for a little bit. So
every now and then we get a rash of injuries. We've had quite a few injuries throughout the first half of this season, to be completely honest. But we've just been able to weather the storm much better this season than we have in seasons past, specifically at that wide receiver position, but also at the defensive line position as well. We've been able to weather some of those injuries, and even at the at the cornerback position. We've had a couple guys in and out, stuff like that. So been able to weather the storm as far as the injury front goes for the Tigers. Pretty good season so far on the injury front. I mean, you mentioned Phil Maffa. You know, he'll get banged up on a play, but he seems to just come back in and keep doing what Phil does. Jake Brenningstool was interviewed this week and asked by the media about that kind of injury, and he was like, "It's just football. I got banged up a little bit. I'm fine." So sounds like nothing serious there. So definitely a good thing because he's a big piece of that offense and a huge weapon for us. So sounds like we're going to be in great shape coming out of the bye week. Let's hope Clemson responds out of this bye week like they did out of the previous bye week, because we talked about it going into that bye week, Jordan, that, before that we had started to have a little bit of a, what do you want to call it? A trend, if you will, coming out of bye weeks a little slow, a little lackadaisical, not really firing on all cylinders, but didn't do that after the first bye week. Hopefully Clemson does the same thing, stays focused, stays locked in during this bye week, comes out healthy and ready to roll. I see people in the chat asking about Adam Randall. Didn't see him much last week. Yeah, his snaps were definitely limited. Seems like they're still trying to work him back in a bit slowly, but the dude's a freak. He's gonna. This bye week is just gonna further help him heal from that surgery that he had, the 2 screws that got put into his foot.
Right.
Can't believe that I'm saying that, and that
right. He wasn't supposed to be back, like timeline wise. He wasn't supposed to be back this soon, like in terms of how it normally goes.
Yeah, I think originally Dabo's thought process he would maybe be back after this bye week.
Right.
But he's already played 2 games since then, so since the surgery. So shout out to him and his toughness. But I think probably after this bye week, you'll start to see him work back into the offense a little bit more, and those snaps kind of increase. All right, Jordan, this past weekend, the Clemson Tigers played Virginia. Tony Elliott came home to Death Valley for the first time since he left as OC and became the head coach at Virginia. 48-31 was the final score in favor of the Tigers. Virginia scored far too many points in the fourth quarter, as we've seen happen a couple times to our Tigers this weekend. But overall, a dominant performance by Clemson. Clemson was never really in danger of losing the game. Started off a little bit slow, but as soon as Virginia scored, Clemson answered, and then it kind of just snowballed from there, right? So Clemson really did get it done for that after that initial portion of the game. First couple drives didn't go so well, but outside of that, the offense performed really well. The defense performed well outside of the end of that first quarter, where gave up a couple explosive plays there, onside kick, 2-point conversion, that kind of stuff going on. But going back and watching the game, did you notice anything that we didn't kind of hit on during that post-game live video?
Yeah, I've gone back and certainly, taken it all in. I think one of the things that jumped out to me really was kind of from a defensive standpoint. I think I want to start there because we have talked about kind of the inconsistencies that we've seen from this defense through 7 weeks. With Virginia, it was kind of, I don't really know how to describe it. It didn't feel like they necessarily played poorly from a down-to-down basis, but I do think there were some things that they did that didn't make a lot of sense to me and led to some easy first downs for Virginia and probably could have potentially hurt you for more. But they didn't always execute on them. I think the starting. I'm not even talking about the fourth quarter when you had the backups in and they score points, but that's not really what I'm getting at. I think even during the flow and the course of the game, I felt like there were some things that you did that weren't didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. First things first, you were very fortunate in this game that Chris Tyree for Virginia did not have a bigger game than he did. for whatever reason, it didn't feel like Clemson respected him a ton. Um, if you guys know that name, obviously Chris Tyree was formerly a running back at Notre Dame, running back at Notre Dame, moved to wide receiver, and transferred to Virginia this past season. One of the fastest players in the sport, like legit track speed. Um, they utilize him kind of in the slot, although we saw a lot of Malachi Fields in the slot too. Um, I felt like you didn't really do a whole lot to account for his speed. There were a couple of times where Virginia hit you on quick outs because you had your nickel or your safety like basically lined up 10 yards off of him. But they really only hit you for a couple of those quick little outs. You had Khalil Barnes on him a lot. I didn't really understand kind of the methodology. I think against it's excusable against less less explosive slot receivers, but I felt like you could have been burned really badly by Virginia this past week, and they just didn't for whatever reason. They didn't really have him run a lot of longer routes, and they didn't really do a lot to try to get him the ball in space a ton. And I think that was kind of a microcosm of how you sort of played Virginia in general. I don't feel like they necessarily respected Virginia's ability to move the ball and burn you consistently. And I think that mentality kind of seeped into how they played this game. Just a lot of sloppy play, a lot of lackadaisical, a lot of a lack of urgency, I guess, is the best thing the best way to word it. And I think from the top down, and I think that's part of why you had so many issues, getting set at the snap. They gave you a lot of different look. They kind of sped you up and slowed you down and did a lot of things to kind of get you off balance. You just were flat out more talented than Virginia, and you were able to execute more than that. But it could have been worse, I think. So one of the things that I saw from this team was just kind of, and it's kind of been a consistent theme from this season, is they just don't play with that motor consistently, and I don't think it's not just from a player standpoint. I feel like just how they call the game at times, it feels kind of passive. So that's one thing I do want to see a little bit more. And that's that's my overarching negative take about the defense, but there were a lot of positives. I thought, your defensive line played well in this game, 4 sacks, did not allow Virginia to get the run game going really at all. Did a really good job of kind of, especially after they hit you for a 9-yard gain on like the first play of the game, did a quick little pitch to Kobe Pace. But they didn't. It was very, very. They were very quick to adjust, and Virginia didn't have much going in the run game. And you did a lot to affect Anthony Calandria, but in the second level, you didn't account for the quarterback run enough, and that's kind of led to some of the times where he hit you for some big gains, and the QB draw on 3rd and 17 that should never happen. I thought your DBs played well, especially your corners. I thought they handled it extremely well. Avion Terrell was really sticky in coverage, and all in all, I thought the back end was not really the issue. I think the linebackers certainly kind of took a step back after they had played a little bit better the past couple of weeks. So I just want to see more consistency from them. And yeah, that's my overarching take on the defense. We've kind of, I don't really have anything to add about the offense that we didn't talk about on the recap show. So that's my long kind of take on kind of what I saw from the defense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense what you're talking about on the defensive side of the ball. Sometimes it seems that they lack that killer instinct, if you will. They're just not finishing games like you want to see them finish games. The effort sometimes is lacking, to your point. And we've just seen it happen a few times this season, a few too many times, in my opinion. Definitely something that you want to see them, kind of talk about and correct in this bye week, and really kind of put an emphasis on the rest of the season of just finishing games, not playing to a scoreboard, not playing to an opponent, not playing to how well your offense is moving the ball up and down the field, right? Just playing to a standard, which is what Dabo kind of preaches all the time, right? Playing to a standard. You're playing against Clemson every single week, and I don't think the defense has done a good job of playing to the standard at certain points in times in a lot of these games, and overall for the first half of the season. Although they are playing pretty well, obviously you can't complain on a 4-sack day with 6 tackles for loss. Not saying they're out there just giving up 50+ points a game. But definitely some improvements that could be made, I think, in short order because of the talent level on this defense. This is not a defense that lacks talent really at any position group. All 3 levels of this defense have elite talent on there, so these corrections can be made in season. It's not like, well, we just don't have this piece this year. That's not the case. For this Clemson defense, it's definitely there. Just got to clean up some stuff. That's all it is. Some of it's tackling, some of it's effort, some of it's, seemingly playing to a scoreboard. Again, I'm not in the room. I don't know how they truly feel over there on the sideline. I know sometimes, everybody's humans. It's difficult when you're up, 38-10 to play with the same intensity that you were playing with when it was, 3-3 in the first quarter, right? I get it. Everybody's human, but you got to clean some of that stuff up because, like I said in the post-game live, later on in the season, when it matters, that stuff will creep up, and sometimes get you beat, depending on who you're playing. So, got to clean that up moving forward. I completely agree with you. As far as the offense, I think they moved the ball extremely well. Cade had himself another day, outside of that really, really bad interception that he threw. But outside of that, really good decision making. The offense was again just moving the ball up and down the field. Really good there. Phil Maffa had himself a great day again. So overall, I think it was a pretty good game. Obviously, a highly emotional game. Got a little chippy at times between the two teams. So that was fun and interesting to watch. I think the back and forth at the end of the fourth quarter was really interesting to watch between Dabo and Tony Elliott, and Tony Elliott just refusing to give up, running tempo, scoring a touchdown, going for 2, doing an onside kick, right? And then Dabo's like, oh, okay, all right. Well, I was going to call the dogs off, but hey, Cade, first team offense, go hop back in there, and then just drops a bomb to TJ Moore down the sideline for a big time touchdown. And that was just kind of a dagger right there, just to kind of – I felt like it was a message to remind Virginia, like, hey, chill out. We can still come out here and put up as many points as we want to. We're trying to relax. So I thought that was interesting to watch them, and then kind of, Dabo kind of tip his cap to Tony Elliott for that final big, kind of busted coverage, big touchdown that Virginia scored to make it 31-48. Don't like seeing that on the scoreboard, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's just kind of a, you want those backups to play better. They'd certainly need the reps, but yeah, I was less frustrated. It was frustrating in the moment, but I was less frustrated about that on the rewatch than I was, some of the things that they left out there when the starting defense was out there. I said, man, you could have gotten off the field here, or man, you could have that could have burned you against a better team,
right?
So I think this defense is kind of they certainly have the ability, I think, and they played at a high level at times this year, but it's just it doesn't seem like they have that motor consistently. And I don't think it's like a leadership problem or anything like that. I think you have good leaders on that defense. But you need a little bit more from a intensity and consistency standpoint. So yeah, and like you said, it was a highly contentious game. There were a lot of penalties, really uncharacteristic from this team because they've been really good about for the most part about penalties. They've been a really disciplined football team. But you had a lot of guys, tempers flare a little bit. You had Jake Brenningstool with that unnecessary block
Yeah.
on one of Phil Maffa's big runs that erased that. Of course, you had the incident with Tristan Lay and I don't remember the Smiley kid from Virginia. That there were a lot of incidents in this game, and it was a lot of chippiness. I don't want to take too much away from that, but it certainly hurts you at times, and it helped. It erased some good plays and extended some Virginia drives. So don't do that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Do not do that anymore. Clean that stuff up. I get it. Emotions run high. And this was certainly a game that was charged with emotions. Tony Elliott returning, CJ Spiller being inducted into the Ring of Honor, all that, emotions were high. So you get it, but you got to clean that stuff up. Can't allow you to get outside of yourself in a football game and hurt your team, because in a different game, that can be the difference between winning and losing. So